I'm so excited to welcome Miss Alexis Young, who is a creative powerhouse with over a decade of experience in bringing visions to life. She is the creative director of Definitely Real, as well as a lead singer in her indie rock alt-pop band, Blonde Diamond. Welcome to ThinkSpace.
Thank you so much for having me, Summan.
Of course. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I'm feeling very zen, very chill, which is a nice change from my usual. Yeah, I'm on staycation right now. So ask me that question again in a week.
Oh my God. Okay, well, we have been having a lot of offline conversations about care from a creative lens. And so when I was like, okay, what do I want to talk to Alexis about? And like, where can you really provide a lot of value? I feel like you are one of the most creative people I know.
Oh,
literally look at you right now, right? But you're creative, not just in the sense of like, oh, here's what I put on paper. Like, I think you're truly creative. Like, you're truly an expression. You're somebody who wants to be seen and be seen as like the visions of yourself. You know what I mean? So as I know that I know a bit about your story, but you started a band long time ago. So I would love to go way back when and just talk about like, what did creativity look like for you at that time in your life?
Yeah. So I started, like I played music ever since I was a kid. Like I did, the Yamaha and like ear training of the piano and obviously the recorder too. But it was, I learned how to play piano by ear and then I learned guitar. And I didn't really start writing music until I was like 14 or 15. But that for me was such an important like emotional release, at that time. Like, I don't know about you, but for me, 15 was the worst year of my life.
Yeah.
Maybe the second worst year, but it was not good. And it was just such an important outlet for me to be able to just like, write these songs. And I go back and look at them now and I'm like, oh my God, these are ridiculous. When you read your journal entry from when you're a teenager, these songs are the same. But they were so important for me to have this space to like just express my feelings. And, I never really recorded any of them.
Well, what did you think? Like when you were writing these songs, were you thinking I am writing songs?
Yeah.
Okay. So like you had consciousness over that. And then did you think as you were writing the songs, was it just self-expression or was it like, yo, eventually I'm going to record this and it's going to be a hit?
Not it's going to be a hit, but like I would, compare it to other songs or albums that I was listening to at the time. And I would create a whole world of production in my head of like, if I were to record this, it's going to sound like, Franz Ferdinand, or it's going to sound like the Shins, or like, at the time, like,
the Shins
or
were
the Strokes.
Shit. Yeah.
Like it was 2005. Okay. There was a lot of amazing indie rock coming out at that time. And so I was like, okay, this is going to be this vibe, or this is going to be Feist, like this, or Stars. And anyways, I had this whole kind of production vibe in my head, but I didn't have like the means to do that. So I knew that it was, I wrote it with the intention of it being a song, but it was also, it started from a place of like, I have so many feelings inside that like I am going to burst unless I write them down somewhere. And I had this like really like hilarious old Casio keyboard that I would like write everything on, and it had like a voice sampler. I got it at a pawn shop with my brother, and then I had like a piano as well, and I would just like kind of play these things, but they were not for anybody. Like nobody heard them.
Yeah, they were for you.
They were for me. And then I recorded my first song when I was 19. That it was a song that I wrote after my first breakup.
Which is so adorable. But the thing is like, okay, you don't know what you don't know, especially at that age. Right now you go through something, you're like, you have an idea. Okay. Like you are, or you at least have some trust with yourself where you're like, okay, I can get through this. At 19, everything is new and like expressive for the first time. Even at 15, 14, you're just like, you are just learning how to feel. You are just learning how to experience. So it's like, you need that, right? I'm really curious. Like as you were writing all those songs, and you're writing for yourself, what was the experience after you were done? Like when you did engage in that creativity and you kind of left it there on the page, was it resourcing you? Like how was that fueling you?
You know, it's so funny to like reflect on that now because when I recorded my first song at 19, I would listen to it like over and over and over again and be like, I can't believe I recorded this. Like, this is my song. This is mine. Like, this is me. And it was so like empowering. It was such a special thing. And again, I didn't do anything with it other than like I would play it for anyone who would listen or just listen to it myself. But it was like, it was such a special thing that I was like, I can do this. I did this. And it did give me a bit of the confidence to be able to like play in my first band because this is a funny thing too, is that I feel like a lot of artists, especially early on, I refused to call myself an artist. Like I was like, I'm not an artist.
Why?
I don't know. I just felt like I didn't deserve that title for some reason. Like even though I was making music and writing songs and even like I used to paint and draw a lot as well and was by the very definition an artist, I still didn't feel like I deserved that title. And I wouldn't allow myself to call myself an artist until my like mid-20s. And I don't know really like
I think it's
why.
the becomingness. You know what I mean? It's like everything is so new. Like if I tried to be an artist right now, I wouldn't believe it either, right? But it's like, is it something that I'm committed to? Is it something I'm going to keep showing up for? Is it something that I'm going to refine? I think that whenever you take on a title, you also take on the responsibility of the title.
Yeah, I think for me, I was more so like, I didn't feel like I measured up to what I considered to be an artist yet. And so it was like, not so much the responsibility. Like I felt like in my bones that I was an artist through and through, but I hadn't deserved or I hadn't earned the title of being an artist until I had like somewhat of these accomplishments under my belt. Like, and I found it annoying when other people would just be like, oh, I'm an artist. And I'm like, you don't know what it means to be an artist. You know, like you don't have this inner turmoil and this kind of output of work that is like amazing, that connects with people or is life-changing. It was kind of judgmental about it. And so maybe there was like a little bit of like imposter syndrome, but a little bit of like, I cherished the identity of an artist so much that I like really felt like I had to like build my way up. Yeah, I had to earn it.
Yeah. Okay, so you record the first song. You're 19. It goes nowhere. You don't put it out.
It goes nowhere.
So you said then that you started to be in a band. And like, what did that primary formation of a band look like?
So I was asked to play in a band that already existed in Vancouver after I moved here. So I moved here from Calgary to go to design school, and my brother was in music, and his girlfriend at the time played in this band, and she kind of left and was like, "Well, I know my boyfriend's sister can play keys, so maybe they can or she can play for you." And so I started playing in this band called Sex with Strangers.
Okay.
When I was, I think, 20 or 21.
Yeah.
And it was like a dance rock band. And I played in that band for like 4 or 5 years. And it was amazing because it taught me everything I needed to know about being in a band and like going on tour and releasing music and recording music videos. And it kind of gave me that skill set so that when I started my own band like 4 or 5 years later, I was like, okay, I know how to do this. I've got the skills now, and now I can do it. And it's like I can merge my two worlds of like I have the ability, but I also have the expression, and I am going to like merge these two things together now and make it like my own thing.
I love that. When you're saying that you're okay, like to make something your own, pre-making it your own, you also are now learning how to work in a union with other people and be creative as a team. How was that as a young person learning how to be creative in a team?
I really loved it. Like, I feel like I've always really fed off of the energy of other people. I like working on my own for some things, sometimes, especially if it's like maybe super, super personal, but I've always gotten so much out of sharing with other people. And then that sort of like energy that you get from the exchange. And then, somebody's like, oh, what if we try this? And then you're like, oh, and then we can do this. And I mean, that's when the magic happens, is when you're just like, pop, pop, pop.
You're a true collaborator.
Yeah, true. Yeah. And I love collaborating. Like I do feel like that's where the magic really does happen, is in that collaboration. And so it was really fun for me to do that in Sex with Strangers, because it wasn't my music. And so I also felt it was my music because I was helping to write it later on, but it wasn't my band. So I was.
Can you, like, for somebody who's not in the music world, right? I can get it, but I want you to explain it a little bit more. Like, it's not my band. You're a part of it. You're a driver of it. But when you say it's not my band, is it because you're not the lead singer? Is it because, like, why?
Because it had existed kind of years before I had joined the fold and got into the mix. And it was not my artistic vision. Like, I was not a part of the North Star identity and goals, and like,
you weren't the founder.
I wasn't the founder.
Yeah.
And I contributed a lot of ideas and, was a part of it for sure, but it wasn't mine.
Yeah, I get it now.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's hard. You know what? It's like those spaces are so beautiful because you get to learn so much and you get to express yourself and you get to grow. But then there does come a point where you're like, you kind of overflow and you're like, okay, I can't fit in this confinement anymore. And I have to figure out, what can I do if I had the creative reign to put all my stuff out there?
Yeah. And I think that once you like, I don't know, there's something that's really different between creating within the confinements of like somebody else's vision. It gives you the opportunity to explore something maybe that you wouldn't have tried before.
Yeah.
And so you don't feel as precious about it or as personal. And there's something super liberating about that. But then once you have more of that experience under your feet and then you go to do it yourself, then you just like, you have carte blanche, but then you kind of have to give yourself your own parameters as well. And that was a whole new skill that I developed once I did start my own project. And I'm like, okay, now the world is my oyster, but I need to put on my creative director hat while I'm also doing this personal expression, because the band was not just for expression. I also wanted it to become successful. And so that meant there needed to be like a cohesive identity. There needed to be some sort of like, consistency with the production and the writing style, even though I do still struggle with that, because like some songs are like spaghetti Western and then some of them are like, very ethereal, dreamy, like it's kind of all over the map, but there's still a consistency that, you can kind of get a sense.
I can feel you across all of them.
Yeah.
No, and I totally get what you're saying. It's like, I relate that to like brands. It's like when you're working within a brand, you're just like, okay, like how can I be so creative within this box? But then when you are working on your own thing, you almost have to make the box so that you don't. So exactly, so it can drive. How do I put wheels on this and now allow it to drive and go somewhere and do something?
Yeah, that becomes the vessel, right? Like the parameters gives you the vessel, and then it's like all you need. Like we'll call it the boat, and then all you need is like the wind to blow you along, or whatever you want the metaphor to be. But like I don't want to say you can't create without parameters. You can.
No, I agree. But it's just, what I think
it's a lot better if you do.
Yeah, I think creating to create is beautiful, and creating without parameters is beautiful as well. I think that in my experience, what I've learned is like, even with this podcast, like being in a few conversations now, the patterns are showing up, right? And sometimes the patterns also like allow you to see, hey, this is what's working for me in this creative expression, in this way, with these types of conversations. And so it's like, well, then how do I now make that into a bow, and how do I give it the things that it needs in order to really succeed? But that element of succeed and success, that's a tricky one when it comes to creative expression, right? So like, okay, now you have your band and you're putting that together. I'm assuming you want it to quote unquote do well.
Yeah.
Like, what does doing well look like for you at that time?
Well, at the time, like so my band, it started out being called Youngblood, and then we ended up changing our name to Blonde Diamond a few years later. But when I started Youngblood, it's interesting because I didn't really have a ton of expectation. I just knew I needed to do it. And I also just kind of intrinsically have high standards. And so even though I didn't have like a particular vision of like, here's my metric of success, I knew that whatever I did, I wanted to do well. So, I just made what I thought was like the best version of, the songs or the videos or whatever. And then when I uploaded my second single to the DSPs, which is the digital streaming platforms, and this is funny because this is like at the time before you were supposed to like pay and, like try and get on editorial playlists or whatever. You could just upload and it would like happen overnight. And overnight, our song went viral. And I remember being like, oh, I didn't expect this.
And what platform was this? Like Spotify?
On Spotify, yeah.
Okay.
And I woke up to it being on the viral playlist on Spotify. And I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
And it was amazing because I didn't expect it. And then that kind of changed everything after that, because then I was like, oh, I can make something like really big with this. And I worked my ass off to have all these other opportunities come up. And so like there was sort of this like momentum that got built after that, where like, we participated in the Juno Masterclass program, which is like, 3 artists across the country are like, they win this masterclass and you go to Toronto and you do the whole thing. And that was amazing. And then through that, we got a ton of, producer hookups in Toronto and LA. And then we started touring like all over the world. We toured like 4 continents and had all these opportunities. And it was interesting because then I was like, oh, we had people who were like, oh, I want to work with you for like management or whatever. And I was kind of like, oh, I don't know if you're the right fit, because I
did you have a manager at the time? No. You're like, baby, no, you're looking at her.
Yeah, you're looking at her. There was a lot of that time that I look back on and I'm like, I had no fucking idea what I was doing. And, they talk about like the old adage that's like, what is it? Like success is when hard work meets luck.
Yeah.
Or preparation meets luck.
Preparation meets luck, yeah.
I feel like at that time, I worked hard and we were lucky, but I just didn't know how to harness that luck and to turn it into something, right? And so I was just kind of like flying by the seat of my pants. And
what did that feel like? Because like when we think about creative sustainability, right? I always think about Joss and I, previous host of the ThinkSpace, used to talk about blind ambition. And there's a period in your life where you are blindly ambitious. Yeah. Right? It's the period of your life where you don't really have sense of the mountain. You don't really have sense of like, imagine climbing Grouse Grind, you've never done it. You don't really have an understanding of what you're about to do. Second time you do it, you're like, okay, I have some sense. And so it's like, I feel like what you're describing is blind ambition. You're just like, okay, let's go, let's run, let's make it happen.
That totally was what it was. Like that, like it was just like, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what tomorrow is going to bring, or next month or next year. And there was an excitement in like, who knows what's going to happen, right? And like there was a real palpable buzz of just like, I don't know what opportunities kind of lay around the corner. And so I just really blindly went into pursuing all these things. And I worked really hard at like submitting us to festivals and to getting these opportunities. And when people were like, hey, I want to work with you as management or whatever, I was very particular. And I should say like I wasn't trying to be like rude with like, you're not good enough. I think it was more so like I wanted to be discerning so I could find the right fit and make sure that like whoever we brought on really understood the vision. And there was some people who we met along the way who, saw an opportunity and, like there were guys who were like, I want to separate you from your band. Like I want you, Alexis, on your own and none of the other men in your band. And, there's people that I was like, ooh, this is kind of like a bad situation. And so I had my spidey senses going on, where now it's like, okay, it's less about the art and the expression and the creativity. And now it's about like, this is a business and you need to be making good business decisions. But when you're like 25, 26 years old, like I don't know what a good business decision is. And so like I'm paying ignorance tax by doing things that I didn't realize was maybe a bad decision, or I overlooked this opportunity. But I just tried to be fueled by intuition as much as possible. And when I look back on that time, I think that I did the best with what I had, just navigating, trying to just like be happy and like play rad shows and like hang out with my friends and, just like do what I can. And then of course it's like when the pandemic happened, it's like everything kind of came to a screeching halt. And then we had to reimagine how success was going to look like and what the future of the band was going to look like, especially as we like entered our 30s, where it's like, oh, this, touring is not as cute as it was in
well, it's not
20s.
as easy. You can't get fucked up and wake up the next morning and be okay.
No.
Right?
No.
Yeah. Even with what you're saying, there's a season when, like, I remember, like, being very young in business and just, like, it is that feeling of, like, oh, I just love hanging out. I love being immersed in this. I love even how you're like, oh, you don't know what's coming next. That's so intoxicating because you're just like, well, what could it be? And it's almost like you're waiting for life to give you your gifts, right? And like you're just like, oh my God, what's next? What's around the corner? Like, what could this become? And like you're so wide-eyed, right? And then life, I don't ever want to say reality hits because I just don't believe that. But I believe that we get grounded.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We get grounded in like, okay, even you get grounded in the dream. You can build something. So I know so many people, and I know you know this, like so many beautiful entrepreneurs and beautiful people who have built beautiful lives. But as they climbed that ladder or whatever it was, even whether that's motherhood, whether that's a business, they get there and they're like, okay, I have to ground myself in what is the reality of this. Even if you think about it, like I want to have a really, really fit body and I want to be a fit model. What is the grounded life of that person? How do they wake up? How do they live their life? What do they eat? Right? So it's like I don't know. I just really believe that there's this time where it is this like blind ambition and it's pure curiosity. And then it's kind of like, okay, how do I ground the dream?
Yeah. I mean, it's like everything at that time felt so bountiful and like prosperous, like anything was possible. And as you were kind of just talking about that, I was thinking about this memory that I had also when I was 19 and I was in India and I went and got my palm read in this like street market. And the man was saying to me, he was like, you have to be extra careful that like most people as they go through life, they're like a flower that kind of opens and blooms. And he's like, you are the reverse. You started open and then you are going to close. And so if you're not careful. And so I know. And so
how did that feel hearing that at 19 when your whole life is in front of you? I
was like, what do you mean? Like I'm going to close and like, this is me open. And yeah, it was a lot. And I actually try and think about that as much as possible because I do feel that way. And I don't think I'm alone in that. I think a lot of people actually feel like they are like this joyful, bountiful thing. And then they start to close as like reality hits, as you were saying. And that there's like this sort of like, oh, things are not what they seem. And
things are not what they seem.
And things are hard. And you kind of let things like wear you down. And then you start to like close your flower. And I have like consistently tried to stay open, like despite all of these setbacks or whatever. And things, it's like a way for me to do that is to just reimagine what the possibilities are like, because yes, it's like, oh, this isn't what it seems. It's something different. And so how can you find like kind of the beauty and the fun and the exploration in that instead of the other thing that maybe you were pursuing, and just try and find the openness and the like bounty in that instead of feeling like it's closed?
Yeah, no, I totally get what you're saying. That makes me think of two things. One, I believe that this is correct. I hope I'm not wrong. But it's this idea of lumerance and like illusions. And I think when you're in that bounty, sometimes there
Mhm.
are illusions, right? It's
Mhm.
like you look at a tree and the tree in summer is full of leaves, right?
Mhm.
But then as like fall hits and the leaves start to go away, so do the illusions of what the summer brought. And then as you go into the winter, it's like, okay, what remains? What is true, right? And so from what you're saying is I feel like almost in that winter, how do you find truth and how do you like birth something beautiful from that truth, right?
Yeah, I mean, your metaphor of the tree and going through winter, I think is like single-handedly the most important metaphor that I've been thinking of lately of like the creative sustainability where like things don't grow all year round.
Yeah.
And so when your, maybe energy or kind of passions or, this like spark that you have when you feel like it's starting to fade, I think you just have to let it. And then you're brought to the truth, right? Of like, what am I left with? And just sitting in that and allowing yourself to reset in that space and not using it as like a bad thing. Where,
Totally.
you're like, this is my time to like regroup and then, like be born again and renew for my next season instead of trying to like push the naked tree to bloom.
Yeah.
Because you can't
It
do
can't.
that.
It can't.
Yeah.
And then you're not also honoring the season that it's in. It's funny. Yesterday I was in the shower and I was thinking like I feel like I'm in this season right now where what was what is not.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, okay, where the fuck am I? But I'm like in between these two worlds and it's like
Yes.
you have to there's an acceptance that comes with that it's like I am not going to be in bloom right now. But at least I'm done with the shedding part and I've gotten to the accepting part. But yeah, so when you say that you have to come to this acceptance that that creativity is not blossoming all year round. From your story, from where I feel like we ended that part was, you get to 2020, you were touring, you're doing all these things. You're out there, you're living. And now you're at this place where life doesn't look the same. Is that a true, genuine like marker of time of like shift in your band?
Yeah, definitely. Because we had like, we had some kind of different seasons even within the band. And like in 2019, we went through like a quieter time because my partner and I had split up at the time and he's also in the band. And so that was, we were
That's
trying to
hard.
navigate
Yeah.
what was going on. But then we got back together and then we got back together just in time for the pandemic. And so it was just kind of like unfortunate because we were really ramping back up again. We had all these tours booked and into 2021 and we had to cancel everything. And when you're left with this like sudden realization of like, oh, I lost momentum and it took so much of my energy to build the momentum back up again. And now we've lost momentum again. And like, what do I want to do? And it actually opened up a whole new creative possibility that like I had no other distractions really. I mean, I was working a lot, like doing design stuff, and that's a different story. But my partner and I, Malcolm, we started doing this thing called Creative Fridays because we didn't go anywhere, right? We weren't doing anything.
I think you told me about this.
Yeah, every Friday we would sit down and we would write something. And it ended up being the biggest blessing in disguise because I had never dedicated so much time to writing before. We're like every week, and it ended up being usually like the creative weekend, where, we would just write something and it was running the tap, right? Where it's like, just see what comes out. You have to like, after you turn the tap on for a bit and it's brown, you just got to let it clear.
Until it starts to flow.
And we wrote a ton of bad songs, but we wrote a bunch of really good songs. And then that ended up being an album that we put together. And we wrote a whole album during the pandemic. And like before that, it took ages to get together to produce anything. Like I used to have to go down to LA for like consolidated kind of writing trips in order to get stuff done, because otherwise we were touring and we're out doing whatever. And I was also contract designing with Lululemon at that time. So it was hard to like narrow down a time of focus. And this ended up being this really beautiful time to like focus in on like just songwriting and
creating to create. It almost sounds like you were just creating to create again. And you know, like you got to get that bounty in your creative expression again.
Yeah, we got to try different genres. Like when I talked about that like Western song, where like that was because, you know, we did all of these weeks of like doing more kind of indie rock or like alt pop songs. And then I was like, I want to write a spooky Western. And then I want to write like a kind of weird, dancey, kind of like super electronic song. I want to write like, you know, whatever, like this like ballad, you know, and we could try whatever we wanted because there was no pressure. Like nothing was precious about it, and we could just try stuff. And so that era ended up being a really beautiful time of creative expression unexpectedly, because we had nothing to do except just make. And then after the world opened up again after that and we started playing again, like 2022 was absolutely fucking crazy because we were playing shows like every single weekend, and I was running my business. And so like working Monday to Friday and then jump in a van and then like drive to Revelstoke, because they're also not going on tour to like Germany because the world's opened up and not that far. So it's like
just open up.
It's like, come on, boys, we're going to Revelstoke. And like, no disrespect to Revelstoke, it's actually super fun.
So
but
gorgeous there too.
Beautiful, but it's not like going to Paris or London. You know, it was a little different. So we're driving to, you know, somewhere in BC, and then we're driving back Sunday, and then it's like back to work on Monday. And like when I talk about like misery, that was a miserable time for me. That was like, we played this one show in Kelowna at the end of 2023. So it was the summer after that, and I had like a full-blown breakdown backstage where I was just like at peak burnout, where I'm like, I can't do this anymore. And then our manager was there and he was like, okay, honey, we don't have to do so many shows. We can just like pull it back and let's get it back to being fun again. And so then we actually had to like really work hard in the past few years to make Blonde Diamond fun again, because it went through a few years of being super not fun. Yeah.
When you're talking, a part of me is like so curious about like, with all of this expression, right? Like, where is it sourcing and coming from? Like, I don't know how to fully ask you the question, but it's like, I see this sense of aliveness that comes through you when you are expressing. Like, aliveness equals expressing. Is that a conclusion to make?
Yeah, I think you're totally right about that. Because when you are in that moment of expression and you feel alive, everything else fades away around you. All the bullshit is gone. And there was somebody who I met like years and years ago who was like an Olympic athlete, and he was like, you know, competing at such a high level of sport is like 99% bullshit, 1% magic. And that was something that I really resonated with, even in the music industry, because there's so much bullshit of like stuff behind the scenes that you're dealing with just for that 1% magic moment on stage. But the 1% magic moment is everything. Like,
it's intoxicating. It sounds
it's the best drug there is.
Yeah.
Like, and it's also like, when it's a good show, sometimes there's shows where it's like, you know, there's 5 people there and that's the bartender wiping the bar and they're like just counting down the minutes until they can go home. And you're like, okay, I'm not feeling that sense of aliveness necessarily from that. But sometimes even like when that's the case and I get to like turn to my left and turn to my right, and I can see my best friends up on stage with me and we're like, whatever, fuck it. This is just a live rehearsal and we're just having fun, you know?
Yeah.
And that I like, when you talk about having to like remind yourself again of like why I do this, it's like, oh yeah, those moments of connection. When people come up to me after a show and they're like, you know, your music really got me through this difficult time and I felt really connected to this, and like, thank you. And I'm just like,
I made that.
Oh man. I think back to the 15-year-old version of me that's like, I just made to make, but I listened to music resolutely because I needed it. Like I needed it for my soul. Like, you know, when you just feel feeling so intensely and it's like, I just need to know that someone else out there feels the same way that I do. And so I just don't feel so alone, especially when you don't have that immediate community. And that's what music was for me. And so being able to do that again for other people, like that is what gives me such a sense of purpose. And I forget that when I'm in the bullshit minutia of like
everyday life,
business admin or the everyday life or whatever. And I'm just like, oh, I don't want to do Blonde Diamond stuff or music stuff because I forget that like
because you're busy.
It's so much bigger than that. It's like you have to just keep zooming out, and it's like everything is insignificant and nothing matters, and so everything matters at the same time, right?
That's a hard one, right? Because it's like when you are somebody who's so driven by purpose, and if nothing matters, then it's like, oh, what's the point? But then it's like everything does matter, and it's like
so you can let go.
You can let go.
Yeah,
but you know. Bringing it back to creative expression, you know, in there you're saying that, you know, we all know that, and for anyone who doesn't know, you're running now a successful agency. You have this band, you have a partner, you have a big life, right? And as you're like juggling all of this, like how are you sustaining that part of you that feels like, hey, this part of my expression is magic?
I feel like it's been a game of like whack-a-mole. You know, where like every time I feel like I have a sort of like goal or something that I'm working towards, I'll like get to it and then like 2 more things will pop up. And then I get to those and then I get like 2 or 3 more things pop up and I'm just trying to like get everything.
Catch them all.
Yeah. And I'm just trying to like do everything and do it all the best. And so it's like, I think I've talked to you about this before and like to other people as well, that like it's an ebb and flow kind of process where like even again in that sort of idea of like seasons, I have historically tried to have like maximum output at like every season. And if it's like I'm not doing Blonde Diamond, I'm doing Definitely Real or doing a bunch of volunteering stuff or like trying to just, you know, hang out with my friends as much as possible because that's also important to me too. And it's like, you know, all of a sudden there's your time and it's like, oh yeah, I got to walk my dog. You know, like there's like all these other things in your life that are important and take up space. And then when you talk about like prioritizing things, I have always struggled with that because whereas like some people I know are like, I just don't know what to do. And I'm the opposite. I'm like, I don't know what not to do because I want to do everything. And then the problem is I want to do everything well. So with the sort of idea of balance, the thing that has really helped me and is currently helping me, because I don't want to sit in this chair and be like, oh, I am rocking it these days. Like everything is fine. Yeah. Because it's, I think it will always be a struggle.
It's a journey. I think to be creative is just to have this, I think we're all creative, but to then take your creativity and make something out of it and like try to do something out with it. I think that is a different mode and a different level of expression. And I think that then requires different energy hygiene.
Yeah.
Right.
And taking energy hygiene seriously, I think is something that like I have struggled with in the past too, where I just am like, you know, I'm just like, I don't need sleep, or I am just going to eat food on the go, or will not take care of myself. I'm going to skip the gym. You know, like it's not rocket science when it comes to like just making sure that your like core fundamentals are taken care of so that you can have the best creative output. And for me, like my schedule is so crazy now, like everything is in my calendar. Like if it's not in my calendar, it doesn't exist, which as like a very type B person, I find hilariously ironic because I didn't have a calendar for years. And now I am so scheduled and by the book. And like now I have to schedule in rest. And, you know, it's not a revolutionary concept, but it's the only thing that works for me, that like I have to schedule in blocks during my day. So it's not even just like, oh, these days out of the month are like the rest days. It's like I've now started to block in time that's like, this is just like a blocked time in my calendar that like my business partner can't book any calls during that time. I don't even want to be doing deep work during this time because struggling to find like work time and, time to talk to people, and then creative time where you just let your mind wander, because, a lot of people think like, oh, it's like you're not doing anything. You're just lazing about. It's like, well, that's also what creativity looks like. You need to kind of laze about. You need to look up at the sky. You need to daydream, Rick Rubin in his book talks about like the creative antennae that you need to have. You need to be sensitive. And if you're not like giving yourself the space to be sensitive, you're not going to make anything meaningful.
Not be, exactly. Your work is not going to be meaningful. I really believe you can produce beautiful things. I mean, AI will teach you that. Like even if you look at like, if you get AI to write you a reel, let's say, and then if you wrote a reel, it would be very different. If you think about the expression of like the humanness behind that, the pain behind that. If you think of a song, why do these songs make us cry? Like when we were talking, I was like, I needed Eminem to be that mad.
Right?
I was mad.
You needed that, but it's like, we also can't create from that space unless we give ourselves time to reflect on that space.
To feel it.
And to feel it, because it's like, I need to know this feeling intimately in order to be vulnerable enough to try and share it. Because I can't talk about it until I've like sat with it and like really ruminated and like percolated on this.
But that's
feeling.
what I'm saying though. That is an honest creator. That is an honest creative, right? In comparison to the lack of honesty in creative. And I think we're in this time right now where there's a lot of flat creative. It doesn't have a lot of soul behind it.
Yeah, I know what I mean? By that.
And then there's the creative where you're like, you can feel
it's got to be juicy.
It's juicy. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we're also in an era, in a season of output. Like I've heard you say it so many times, output. And I'm like, well, what
output
the heck
tied to identity.
Right?
It's like, if I'm not producing,
then who am I? And what am I? Where's my value? And it's like, well, what's being input?
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? Well, what is creating that creativity? I always say there's the living the art, there's the creating the art, there's the being the art, there's the expressing the art. And these are all different seasons of making art. You know what I mean?
Totally. And it's also, I think, something that I need to remind myself too, is that like in those seasons of making art, that like you really have to like sit in the juices of that before you can share. And sometimes when you have this like crossover, when you're trying to like write and release and kind of promote, those are three very different things. And what I've found myself doing is like I have too much crossover between those two things. So like I really struggle with writing while I'm also releasing and promoting.
Yeah.
And kind of vice versa.
They're different modes.
They're totally different modes. It's the same thing as like what we talked about, offline, about like making versus managing, where it's like switching gears into those things. It's really, really difficult, where it's like, I need to just be a maker. I need to just feel. But then when you are in a leadership role, that's a totally different mode of operating. And it's the same thing with artistic kind of output, where the writing process is so much more sacred than I think a lot of people give it space for. And when you don't protect that space or that energy and that sensitivity, yet, like we said, you're not going to make anything meaningful.
Yeah, because making needs flow, and management needs availability and accessibility, right? So they're two different things, because I think flow needs space. It needs space. It needs some sense of isolation. It needs some sense of immersion.
You need time,
right?
too.
You need time. And so then it's like you're just, So, okay, as you are the dog floundering in the lake, you're like, okay.
Oh, you've seen my dog swim.
So right now you're saying you're scheduling rest, that you're inputting, you're giving yourself energy. If you were to give somebody who's creative on the other side of this one tip for something that's working really well for you right now, or something you heard that's working really well for you right now, what would that be?
Okay. My tip to somebody who feels like they have a very high sense of output and is struggling with perhaps burnout or just like overwhelm, is to try and find time for mini releases as much as possible if you can't find time for the max release.
Yeah.
That like schedule in that max release time as soon as you can and make it a non-negotiable. But if you're like me and sometimes you don't have time for the max release for like 2 months or like 6 months sometimes, which that's actually bad. Please don't do that. But let's just say
it's like real.
It's just real, right? Like let's say, oh, I can't go on a vacation or even like take like a weekend off because I've got all this stuff that I'm doing and I'm pumped about it, but I'm just feeling tired. Schedule in or find times for the mini releases. And that looks like, doing like Qigong shaking, or like changing your body temperature, like have a cold shower, hot shower. That immediately resets your nervous system. You can listen to like 528 hertz, like the love frequency, on headphones and just give yourself 20 seconds lying down and just like, let's say you're doing that in between calls. And like, that's something that this business coach that I'm working with was really helping me with. Cause she's like, if you don't have the time, like if you're working from home or even like at the office, even just between calls, you can have like 5 minutes where you go outside, you do some shaking, you listen to some frequency, like you can do these like mini resets throughout the day. Changer. And it is a game changer. And so if you feel like you don't have the time, to do a big reset, just try as much as possible to find the little resets because even though they feel small in the moment, they really do add up.
Yeah, I totally agree. I feel like the small resets, if I was to say like what actually keeps me sustainable through creative expression, it is everyday small resets.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Like 2 years ago, I put 100%. In my calendar, rest and recoup every day at 7:30 so that I would force myself to turn my computer off. It doesn't work every day, but 90% of the time it works. And I don't go back on my computer. I actually invest in my energy. I invest in myself. I do these little things. I do dance parties between calls. And they just make you so much more excited, right? To live the life that you actually say that you want to live.
Yeah.
How do I live this life that I say that I want to live then?
And there's I haven't read the book yet. I just ordered it, but I believe her name is Brie Groff, and she just released this book. And I want to say like, oh God, maybe we could put it right here. But it's like How to Have Fun at Work, I think is what it's called.
Okay.
And she talks about, she's like, everyone knows about the let them theory by now, right? And she has a theory in this book called the most days theory, where it's like, most days, I can wake up and I can have a coffee and I have a moment before I log in to check my email. But some days, I've got a toddler and I'm like not feeding her a complete breakfast and we're running out the door. But that's some days, that's not most days. And as long as most days you have the time to find the mini resets, to have the days be like set up how you want, then you get back to that place of like fun and excitement and like living your life with like the agency that you want to have, where it's like,
I choose this. I want this. I
don't
this.
feel like I built this prison, which is something that I said on my onboarding form with my business coach. And she was like, okay, we need to change this because it's like our lives on this planet are so short and we spend most of our time working in our adult life. It's like, why are we working in these prisons? Some of us self-imposed. And, it's like, it doesn't have to be this way. Sometimes it does, and it's maybe for a season, but like, it shouldn't be this way forever. And especially if you're doing creative work, like we do have the power as creatives, as these like super feelers, to be able to direct how we're navigating through these environments in a meaningful and fun way. That like not every day has to be fun, but as long as most days are fun, then like I think we're winning.
And I think that's more honest. Yeah. I could honestly go on forever, but Alexis, where can people find you online?
Oh, okay. Well, people can find me at Blonde Diamond Music on Instagram and at definitelyreal.agency as well. And definitelyreal.agency for the website and blondediamondmusic.com.
Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me.